I can see the pain you're going through, but there's literally, I felt hopeless, useless. Like it's like there's nothing I can do, you know? And it's the times where you talk about something, we unpack it, but it still doesn't feel enough.
And that thing of being a burden then would kind of play in my head that like all you're doing is just losing all the time, which is not necessarily true.
Yeah.
But it felt like for a very long time in our relationship, all I was doing was losing.
We always look for reasons when we are grieving or when we have a loss of anything. You always feel better if you can explain it in a
Yes,
certain particular way,
yeah.
you know?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pursuit of Freedom podcast. Welcome to episode 3 of season 1, Love, Loss, and Lamentation. So today's episode is exciting because I have someone really special with me. And I had to negotiate my way into having this conversation, but I thought it was really a necessary conversation following up from the previous episode. And so I have with me my husband, Dial-Makhubalo. And I wanted this episode to be all about the we in the grief journey, right? So we haven't compared notes. Well, he's going in blind.
I don't even have any notes.
He's going in blind, but I wanted this conversation to be as authentic as possible, and not rehearsed. And so that's why I wanted to just flow. Cool. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see how the conversation
Are you
goes.
nervous?
Yeah,
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little
But
bit,
I
because I
feel
don't know what
like,
to expect.
you know, I was recording a clip for a vlog, and I was saying how I've been trying to suppress my excitement about today because I knew if I'm overly excited,
I'm going to run
you're
away.
yes. So I literally have been trying to suppress my excitement, but I'm so excited for us to have this conversation. One, because I think it's a unique angle in kind of couple conversations, but I also am excited because a lot of people love it when we have this kind of conversation.
I wonder why.
A lot of people love it when we have this kind of conversation, and we haven't done something like this since 2021, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we moved into the house, that was the last time we had to sit down. So yeah, so I'm really, really excited, and I hope it's everything that you desire it to be as well.
I don't think I've got any predetermined outcome.
Okay,
So
cool. Okay,
the conversation will just flow, and yeah.
okay. I'll work with that. Cool. So the first question I want to ask you before we go into the theme for today, which is the we in the grief journey. My first question to you is, what has coming home to yourself looked like for you within the marriage context?
Yeah, it's a broad question. It's looked like a lot of growth, a lot of challenges, right? I mean, for however many years I've been on earth, I've done things in a particular way.
Yeah.
And then you come together with someone else, and then you have to sort of unlearn so many things for you to learn new things.
Sure.
And how the other person functions, operates, what they like, what they prefer. So I think for me, it's been a lot of unlearning, a lot of that, but also a lot of challenge. It's been, I think the challenge is so difficult to express because you go through it in different phases, right? So one moment you're like, okay, I've overcome something and I've learned a new way to deal or tackle challenges, but then it comes back. So it's like a continuous learning curve of, you know, that this is one thing you've always done in a particular way and you want to do it differently. You start doing it differently, but you fall along the way. But I think the best thing about it is when you are aware of your shortfalls. You know, it's one thing trying to change behavior, but not being aware of when you relapse. You know, so yeah, it's been. There's no one word to describe it. I think the question, that's why I'm like, it's so broad because I'm having so many moments
Yeah.
of growth that I'm thinking of and having to change and think differently about things. And think about the next person, you know, two other people, you know, two other
Two
people,
other big characters
you know,
also.
that are also going through their own journey,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, it's been a lot of learning. I think if I could summarize it, it's been a lot of learning, a lot of growth, but also good growth. It looking back, you know, it feels it seemed impossible. But now that I look back, I'm like, wow, okay.
You did it. And you're doing it. You really are doing it.
Yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you have in the sense of growth. And maybe in another episode, we could unpack just what growth has looked like for both of us in, within the marriage context. But it seems like growth and learning has been the core thing that's brought you back to yourself, right? And I suppose the unlearning also comes with you recognizing that there's certain things about yourself that need to change for the context, right?
Yeah.
So I think you've answered.
Yeah, I think also it's it's a thing of, as you grow up, we attach so many things to our identity. So that's also a thing. It's like you get to a certain point, you say, this is me, but what is it based on? What is it defined by? Is it defined by all of your experiences? Have you attached certain things to your identity? And therefore, when you get into the context of marriage and coming back to yourself, you're looking at those things and you were defined by things more than
Oh,
the moments and who you really are, you know? I think that's another thing. It's
well, that is deep.
so yeah.
Yeah, that's actually that's so good. And so many things happen, but there's so many things also that we get to experience, desire, that we then attach that identity to. And I think that's such a profound thing, particularly when we're going to speak about grief within the context of relationship and marriage, because grief is a thing and an experience that also kind of changes you as a person, right? And I'm curious as to, so I always look at our relationship in three phases.
Okay.
I've never said this to you.
Yeah.
So phase one was when we dated in varsity,
Yes.
right? And if you want to hear all about that, you must go to previous videos because we talk a lot about our journey there. So that was phase one. Then phase two is when we got back together and got pregnant, right? And then we broke up again. And then phase three is then when we got back together and decided that we're going to get married. And this, like, our marriage now is, for me, phase three, being married, parenting, and all of that. So that's how I look at our journey.
I see two faces.
You see two.
Yeah.
So
It's-
first one is varsity,
yeah.
and then the second one.
The second one is the whole journey of getting back together. I think it
Oh,
for
okay.
me that was a journey. I don't see it
As
as
separate.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's interesting. I see it as separate because I think there was a point where I didn't think that we would get back together. And not because I didn't desire it, but I think with where we were, particularly like at the point where I'm pregnant and things are not going well, I honestly was just like, I don't see how this and as a result, I often I don't think a week passes without me reflecting on how miraculous our journey has been and how, I mean, not perfect, but how good our marriage is, right? Considering where we come from. But I'm also grateful for where we come from because I
yeah,
think that's actually what has made our marriage richer and our relationship and friendship quite rich,
yeah.
is because of where we come from. So I generally looked at it in three phases, but I can take two phases.
No, it's it's fine. Stick to three. Stick to three.
So in these phases that I was talking about, I think this phase, your phase two, my phase three, um, us being together, being pregnant, getting married, has had so much grief, particularly in the past 4 years, 5 years for me, which is as long as really this phase has been, has had a lot of loss and a lot of grief, right? And I reflected on how I have felt that the grief and the loss was one dimensional for a very long time, particularly because of our context of family.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to start. So, you come from a family that is quite close knit, right? And you consider your family that your family.
Yeah.
And I come from a family that was not as close knit as yours. As a result, I had to learn how to make outside people or people who are not blood related my family,
Yeah.
right? And so when then I would lose someone who's not blood related, but I consider family, I often thought that maybe you don't really get you don't get that because it's a different context for you. And I want to talk about that, about partnering with someone who's different from you, different in how they think, different in their experiences, but also different in the language that makes them who they are, right? Because I have a number of friends that I would consider family. And I remember you saying when a friend of ours was referring to you as my brother, and you're just like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Right?
It's still a
It's
weird
still
thing.
weird.
Yeah.
But that's also because you've recognized your close knit family, like your immediate family, as family. So how was that for you? Like how was that for you as my husband, as my partner, and you experiencing me kind of having these different losses, particularly with people that are not family?
Tricky to navigate because, as you've said, my context and your context is different. So, quite difficult to relate. But also, through the journey, I've come to understand and learn how emotional you are, but also how much you value relationships, any kind of relationship. So, from that perspective, I get it. But I think it's so difficult in the sense that, and this is not just based on grieving people who are close to you that are not blood related family. It's also a matter of like my context. If I'm going through something or I'm grieving, I want to sit in it. You know, I've always struggled with the typical sort of messages people send you when you are grieving, right? Because I just feel it's like a stock standard kind of thing.
Okay.
At,
Yeah.
at some points, I feel like we we say things because that's what you're supposed to say, you know? So I think that was a tricky thing for me. And I still don't know if it works with you in terms of how I give you space, because I always felt like, because that's how I function, I feel like, yes, comfort me, let's talk about whatnot. But the main thing for me is I just want to sit in silence, and process. But what I've observed is, like, between when you are, or in the processes where you've been grieving, I've always just been in the space where I sort of reason with you, because I think we always look for reasons when we are grieving or when we have a loss of anything. You always feel better if you can explain it in a
Yes.
certain particular way,
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, my role has been a voice of reason, unpacking, making you think differently about certain situations. So I don't feel like there's a set way that I handle it. And I also don't feel like I take it as it comes. Sometimes I feel like, yes, you maybe need a hug, maybe you whatever, but it's never like this is what I do all the time in any situation. This is how I'm going to show up. This is what I'm going to do. I always take it as and when it comes. And yeah, I think I just sort of learned to understand that you are emotionally attached to a lot of people because you work with people. It's like people is like
People is my
everything,
thing.
So I think that's I've had to sort of learn that, okay, this is who you are, this is how you operate, and relationships are a big thing for you, and people are everything to you. And yeah, so I never look any deeper into it than what it is. It's you grieving, and that is it. Whether who it is doesn't really matter. You know, it's a process you're gonna have to go through, and every relationship is different. I won't understand, as much as we're married, we speak about a lot of things, but I don't really get to understand the depth of the relationship and what it means and where it comes from.
Yeah.
And
Particularly
therefore,
because some
yeah.
of those people are not people that you met or people that you engaged with. You may have seen them or whatever, but it's not people you've engaged with. Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me, it's never been any deeper than what it should. I think I take it at,
As it comes.
yeah.
That is it's interesting that you say you take it as it comes, because it speaks to just being present and mindful of what is necessary or what's being required for you in the moment. But I won't lie, I often, like, particularly, I mean, since 2020, I was actually thinking about this. Since 2020, I think every year I've lost people or someone. Like 2020, it was Masika. Who else passed during that COVID time? Was Masika definitely 2020? Oh, the loss of my job.
Oh yes.
Yes, the loss of my job. And then 2021, Malume didn't pass away. 2021 was Masika's son, Esil. And then it was Makatando as well. Remember? Remember Makatando?
Yeah,
Yes,
yes,
yes. And then it was, Esil have counted. And then after that was Malume. and then it was Uzimkita. I remember Uzimkita
Oh
when we were
yes,
in
yes,
PE. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
Uzimkita. And then it was now Mbloza, right? Mbloza and Ostembis. And then
Yeah.
the thing with my mom. And the reason why I was thinking about those things was there have been the losses of, and I mentioned this in the previous episode, there have been losses of people,
Yeah.
right? But there's also been losses of things
Yeah.
in this journey. And I have always felt, I'm going to try and not cry. There's a point where, like, probably after the third loss, and it's not just the loss of the people, but it's also the dreams that are attached in all of these different things, where I was just like, I feel, and maybe to put a buff on this because you know this, that my core wound is being a burden, right? So that thing shows up, and even though it's something that I've worked on, it's because it's something that I got to experience, or it's a belief that I inherited probably from childhood. It's become so much of my DNA that I have to mindfully unwire myself from it. But when things like certain losses come, it's probably the first thought that comes before I can
Yeah.
kind of recalibrate. And so when all of these losses were happening, particularly like when I lost my job and we're new parents, all unexpected. I literally, like, that became the default, right? I'm going to become a burden. And I had never imagined that that would, like, how things transpired would be how
Yeah.
they worked out. But in the midst of all of these different losses and in the space that you have given me to experience all of it, right? There have been times where I'm not necessarily myself, times where I wouldn't want to get out of bed, times where I just was not engaged as a person. And that thing of being a burden then would kind of play in my head that, like, all you're doing is just losing all the time, which is not necessarily true.
Yeah.
But it felt like for a very long time in our relationship, all I was doing was losing people, losing friends, losing opportunities. It just felt like perpetual loss, you
Yeah.
know? But there's never been a time, even in those losses, where it was you who made me feel like a burden, right? And I wondered where it came from. I wondered where, like, you got the capacity to hold everything that was falling apart in my world and, like, hold it with such grace, because I don't recall a time where I say to you, it's a mental health day and I just want to sit in bed, and then you call me lazy, or you're like, oh my gosh, like, kudala. There's never been a time for that. And I just wondered where that came from. So in your answering, the thing of taking it as it comes, for me is like, it's such a deep thing, because I think all of these different losses have not just changed me as a person, but they also change our dynamic.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like, when I lost my job, it meant we had to figure life out with just your salary being the main income,
Yeah.
right? With a newborn, and all of those dynamics.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah.
So to just maybe give you some context, maybe
Gosh, I
you
need tissue.
could maybe you'll I think to just maybe complete the picture for you. There's certain things for me that are important, and I think when we were pregnant and then Ulusha came, you lost your job, it's just a matter of I went into solution mode. You know how I just for me, it's like, okay, what do we do? So it's more of a overdrive solution. And in terms of grief, it's speaks to how I feel I grieve in just sitting in it. So if you felt like you don't want to get up, you know, it wasn't a thing for me. I didn't view it as anything different to potentially how I process, So it was like, if you want to sit in it, then that's fine. If that's what you
Because
need,
that's what you thought that
for
if this is
me,
what I'm doing, it's probably what I need.
you know, and yeah, so I've never looked at it as lazy, what. It was just like, this is what you need at this point in time. And I think more than anything, right? I'm very simple. You always know this. You always want to do extra things. And I'm like, it's just whatever, If we're going to have a peanut butter sandwich for supper, sharp, that's cool. So I think that's just who I am. I've never expected you to do anything extraordinary. Just if you're there, you do what you is necessary. That's okay. Like, it doesn't need to be all complex, complicated, or fancy. It's yeah. And I think you know this about me. And most of the time I always say, and I think you overthink it. You
Yeah.
feel like I'm just saying it, but realistically speaking, I just feel like, sharp.
But I also think, because you raise a good point on maybe the expectations I've had on myself in how I should show up, even if it's in a season where I'm grieving and it's grief that has kind of, come in an unexpected way. But I also think that raises the perspective or the context of, we grieve while life is going on, right? And we grieve while there are expectations on us from ourselves, but also from the world, right? And marriage in our world has its own expectations, right? Marriage in a Black African Xhosa context has got particular expectations that's attached to it. And the interesting dynamic is that both of us did not necessarily grow up in households where we had the traditional family context,
Yeah.
right? But I certainly did feel, and not because of you, but because of the context of marriage, I certainly did feel in certain instances that I had to show up because I had to show up, because that's what a wife is supposed to do. You get what I mean? But there's a point where, and I think it's a point where, like, when you stretch an elastic and eventually it doesn't have the capacity anymore and it snaps. I think there's a point that I snapped, and I don't know which of the deaths or which of these grief journeys it was, where I recognized that I no longer have the capacity to hold the entire world up. You get what I mean? And the other challenge is also that, which is pressure that I think I put on myself because of where I come from. I consider myself to be quite a resilient person. So when I wouldn't then get over the thing quickly, I'd just be like, what's wrong with you? Judge myself, yes. And then the judgment becomes heavier with the more experiences that come, right? And I think that's the thing that made me emotional, because even as I reflected, it was a recognition that there was never a time where you explicitly would say this, or even your behavior. And I mean, and it's justified to be exhausted or feel stretched,
Yeah.
because I think the past 4 years within our marriage has been stretching for both of us, right? But even when you felt stretched, you never made me feel like I am the reason. That thing of, if it wasn't for you, then this is not how things would be for me right now. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that I have had the privilege of sitting with a lot of grief and working through a lot of grief because you've created the space and the safety for me to do that. And I even said to you in the last episode that one of the things that gave me courage to share my story was because I knew that you were right here,
Yeah.
you know? And I think for the past 4 years, no matter the grief, no matter the experience, no matter the loss, you haven't left.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so many things. I think we recently spoke about this,
Yeah.
probably this year. There's things that happen in our childhood that you feel you want to rectify, if I can call that, do differently when you are given the opportunity. So I think for me, the shift was when we got pregnant. So growing up with a single parent for me was like, it was something I had internally vowed to myself that I don't want to do for my kid, right? So for me, it was like, if it gets to that point. So I think when you got pregnant, it automatically triggered that switch. And then it was just, it was, you work at it,
No
and
matter what.
you give it your all, right? Because this is it. It was very important to me. You know, extremely important. It was probably at top of my priority list of anything. You know, it was
So you had
to
decided you were the man that was never going to leave.
yeah, unless like I don't know, matter of life and death. You know, I just felt like you can work at anything, right? And then if it doesn't work, then fair, you know?
You've given it your
Yeah.
best, yeah.
So I think for me, that made things heck of a lot easier
You see now.
because because I just there was a switch, and when the switch happened, it was just like you it made it easier for me to create space, to feel challenged, right? Throw a tantrum if I have to, lose myself if I have to. But then at the end of the day, the message is delivered. You go back, you review it. You're like, this is the feedback I got from the experience. So is it something that can change? You know, is it something that I can change? Is it important? Is it like a core thing for me, like part of my who my character is or what defines me? Does it mean changing this thing? I'm going against everything I stand for, you know? So that was one important thing for me. And I think a lot of challenges for me, that thing carried me through a lot of challenges because it's very important to me. It's very important that, and that was because I've gone through the experience, you know, where you have someone providing everything for you, but they can't be present, right? So they can do everything. They can get you into the good schools. You can get a lot of things, but the
It comes at
presence,
the cost
yes,
of
you
their
you miss
presence,
that
yeah.
part where you just feel like you wanted presence. And I think that's why it then became
So
such an
important.
important thing. And having not had like someone to unpack all of that, it was something that I literally dealt with as I grew up. It's like there's certain things you just wish you had guidance on, but that was the cards that you were dealt. And so yeah. So I think that's why a lot of things maybe feel like to you there was space, but for me it didn't feel like I was stretching myself.
I think you bring up a good point, which is where we started. Remember, I said I've got 3 phases and you've got 2, and now I understand why it's 2, because you had decided that no matter what, you were going to fight. My default was, I can do this by myself, right? Yes, I desire to be in a marriage, in a family context, but I know that I can do this by myself because I'm an independent girl. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. But I was just like, I'm an independent woman. I can soldier through
Yeah.
because I've been raised by strong, black, fierce women. I know that I can do this. And I think that's why I had such a fight for, like being resistant towards fixing things, because I was just like, I've decided that and I can do it on my own. But it needed, and thank God for Zianda. Zianda literally brought back me to my senses, because that thinking was a survival mode
Yeah.
more than anything. It wasn't necessarily I really want to do this on my own. It was a fear of what happens the next time that things fall apart and then I don't have you to rely on, right? So that was a really big one, and thank you for all of that. Thank you for, in every season of grief, in every loss that I've had, particularly where you didn't throw your hands and be like, I'm not worth the fight, or our family is not worth the fight because of whatever struggles that I was going through, because they were a lot and deep. I'm grateful for that. But I want to speak, as we close the conversation up, I want to speak about maybe certain dreams that we have either had to grieve individually or as a couple, or maybe delayed dreams to an extent, where we have both felt, it would have been great if this thing happened, or there was hope of something happening and it didn't happen. Do you have any of those moments?
Yeah, it's difficult to ask that question now, especially sort of in the phase,
We're in.
we're in.
Yeah.
I say this a lot, that you can't go back and change one thing,
True.
because that changes everything. So I think now, yes, maybe there are delays in certain things that we wished and dreamed for. Um, but also, I'm not mad about it. Um, we've seen periods where things have gotten way better. I mean, we made it this far. I think when you lost your job, we went into a panic. And that comes with having a kid. I think we just felt like this is everything. We need this much for A, B,
Yeah.
and C. And then as you go through the journey, there's just been provision. And the things that you felt were important, you realize they're not as important as what you
So
think they
good.
were. So I think we're just in a good space. We've managed to work through a lot of things. And I think when you speak, at times it sounds so good, but there's a lot of
A lot of work.
bad in there. So I think listening to you, like, it gives, maybe someone may have an impression of, it sounds easy. And I always
Do
have,
you think I put it like
and
it's
I always
easy?
have beef with that thing of, when people have gotten to a certain stage, it and they make it sound so easy.
Okay.
So I think we've had our moments where things have been bad, where you're like, we've had the worst arguments. So it's just for me a matter of having reflected. And I think that's the one thing we've come to understand and do better is even in the time where we've had our worst of fights, yes, we go through the phase of maybe we'll not talk for a bit,
Yeah.
but before we move on from that, we'll then go back and
And have
unpack it,
conversation.
you know,
Yes. Yeah.
and unpack, and
Yeah.
each one of us expresses where they are coming from, their thinking, their thought process, like, and why you felt and reacted or acted in a particular way, you know. And I think those moments have made things way better. Um, Especially for me, you know, one of my biggest things was if ever there's any friction between us, I just go into sort of like a hole, and I don't want to talk. I don't want to. And now looking back on that, for me, it's like within 10 to 5 minutes, I'm like, okay,
I can't do
I'm tired
this.
now. I'm tired. So let's just, even if we start unpacking it and we're
Sure.
like, okay, sure, there's not enough time, we'll need to circle back. It's okay. But then it opens the window to have the conversation. Um, when I go back to grief, I think now I just had a thought is one of the hardest things about having or making space for someone to grieve is when you care so much about them, but you can't take the grief away. Because it's like someone's grieving, you're watching your partner going through a lot, but there's literally nothing you can, there's not do. The only thing I can do is talk to you, make space for you, and that's it. Um, Out of all the losses, I think for me, one of the difficult parts was um, learning about your mom's abuser. I think that was the hardest for me because I was like, I can see the pain you're going through, but there's literally, I felt hopeless, useless. Like it's like there's nothing I can do, you know? And it's the times where you talk about something, we unpack it, but it still doesn't feel enough. I think we had a full blown conversation about what do you want to do and what is the reason why you want to do what you want to do. But it still didn't feel like I had given you enough because I can't understand in any form of what are you going through, what are your thoughts, you know. It's so I think that's one of, for me, in all the different losses you encountered, that's probably one for me that stands out because I could feel that as well. And I think even your gran, when she had the conversation and she spoke to us, yeah, it was a very difficult time and one of the hardest
Yeah. Yeah.
to sort of hold space, you
Yeah.
know, because honestly, I just felt like I could take it away, make it go away, but it was like I can't, you know, and yeah, and when you've never experienced something, you you reason differently. It's like when you have the conversation, and one of my things is always you never want to belittle anyone else's feelings because it comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
There's context to it. Maybe I've gone through it, but it will never be the
Never be
same.
the same. Yeah. Yeah. Man. This time went by so quickly. But I think, as you said, if we were to change one thing, it changes everything, right? Um, and I, yeah, I know my mother's, that thing with my mother was, it was really the hardest, but I think also it still surprises me. Like it wows me how even though you didn't know what to do, but you still were there. You still did. You did what you could, right?
Yeah.
You listened, you asked questions, which I've learned to appreciate also because you ask me really difficult questions, which helps me think differently as well. I think as we close, how do you think grief has deepened our love for each other?
Respect. There's a lot of respect because I think when you experience someone grieving, if you even try to put yourself in their shoes, you just learn to be more gentle with them, give them time. Um, because even just the imagination, I think for me, is a lot. It might not even be close to what the other person is feeling. But yeah, you just learn to treat them differently.
Sure.
Um, and you just take time, you allow for them to go through it. And yeah, it just creates open conversation about things that I guess are uncomfortable because I
Yeah.
know at times it's not easy to have the uncomfortable conversations. But I think grief brings you to a raw place where you get to tap into spaces and feelings that you guys at times just
You never
push
even
away.
thought were there,
Yeah.
even.
So yeah.
Okay. So for me, I think that grief has deepened our love in a manner where we have learned to see each other. It's connected to what you're saying. I've seen you see me in really, really dark places. And I've seen you fight for me to come back to the light. But I've also seen you become a better person and a better partner, right? In how you engage with me, so the gentleness, but also in how you engage with yourself in these experiences, because every grief experience that I have had has been our experience, and in those experiences you have been able to place yourself, even though it's not a personal thing
Yeah.
for you, but you've learned to place yourself in order to not only support but also to get how to support me. And I've also seen you be brave, in confronting my big emotions, because they are big. So you have been very brave in confronting and facing my emotions and sitting with my emotions, which I've really appreciated. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that God would have chosen you to be the person that would hold me in very difficult seasons. But I'm also grateful that God would have chosen me to hold you in your own difficult seasons. I think we've grown so much because of these experiences that honestly came like kind of out of nowhere. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And I'm grateful to continuously see you as a man, as my husband, as a dad, in navigating all these different seasons. So yeah, that's
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It was a great conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted my husband to come here. As you have heard, like our journey has been quite diverse, but I think what really stems out is that grief is never a you thing. There are always people that you are relating with or you are walking the journey of community with who experience the grief with you. And it's people who will hold you up, it's people who will challenge you, but it's also people who will also be your soft landing. And thank you for being my soft landing.
You're welcome.
I love you.
Love you too.